It's 8:02 Newstalk Sauga 960 Raw. Mike Richards now with Jeff Lumby, and for our paths that crossed all those years ago, were extremely close. But a couple of years ago, and it's the first time I think it's the very first time I used Zoom. I didn't really know what it was. Skype I knew, but that's what people used then. What happened to them? Was that like New Coke? Where'd they go? So now you go to Zoom, and he zooms me from this, what I see on screen. I'm like, oh, that's not where he lives. Well, what is this? What is that, a background? What are you doing? And then I realized by looking at the beams, and we watch all these real estate shows, I thought, oh, he's in France. What's he doing? And who would go to France? Why France? And guess what? My good friend Jeff Lumby, who I've seemingly known forever, has moved to France, and he joins us here this morning. Good morning, buddy. How you doing?
Excellent, pal. How are you?
Well, as I said, I'll never forget the look on your face, and you could see my wheels turning, trying to figure out just where the hell you were. And I said, are you still in France? Because you have to explain the story, how you actually came to being there, and then the timing of it, because that was unbelievable.
Well, you know, we started looking for sort of retirement. Like Julie's not retired, but I'm retired. So we started looking for places where she could continue to work, and I could sort of retire without having a bunch of properties all over the world. You know, like a lot of people go to the, you know, like they'll have a place in Florida or Arizona, and then they go 6 months there. And we didn't want to be schlepping 3 dogs back and forth. So we finally, and you know, as you know, Mike, our favorite destination is Europe, whether it's Spain, France, Italy. We love coming over here, and we just thought, let's just get one place and be in the center of where we'd like to travel all the time. So this was all a really great idea in 2019. It's a great idea in 2019.
Yeah.
Okay. So we basically came down, found a house, bought the house, closed on the house in January of 2020. Hey,
yeah. Then
bring on the COVID fund.
Yeah. Clock strikes 12 and everything turns into a pumpkin.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that was, now look, we're going to hang on to this because we're going to take a short break here and come back on the other side. You're going to be with us all hour in studio, which I'm looking forward to.
Sounds great.
Because there's certainly so much to talk about. And you know what? People over here, quite frankly, we don't have a real understanding of France. We know the highlights, we know Paris, we know maybe the south of France. There's certain things we want to hit, but to actually live in France, and not in one of the big cities, to live in rural France where you do, I know people have questions and they want to know. Again, you mentioned COVID. You see numbers, we don't really know what's going on or how it works over there. So we'll get to some of those, and of course, certainly talk about the many radio stations we worked at, including one of our all-time favorites, Y95, where we did some of the most fun radio that has ever existed. So we'll do that. Hang on. We'll come back with more Jeff Lumby in studio. It is 8:05 on Newstalk Sauga 960.
Hang on. There'll be more gambling, booze, and meat talk, sprinkled in with sarcasm, condescension, and insults. This is Raw Mike Richards.
I'm pretty good with the boast stuff.
And our website is kpalawyers.ca, and our phone number is 905-965-6263.
You're listening to Raw Mike Richards.
Knock you out! Eat it, whore!
On Newstalk Sauga 960.
Little James for you on a clear, believe it or not, Wednesday morning, 8:10 Newstalk Sauga 960. Raw Mike Richards. The roads have finally been plowed, I am sure. As you look in the southern part of France, maybe you're not missing this, because I'm so stiff today because it was hours. I mean, this is the biggest snowstorm we probably have had here in at least 20 years, I would say. So I'm sure you're not missing that.
That's a shame.
Yeah. As you sit back, having a nice cigar, probably wine, but okay, here's the weird thing though. So you have to know, Jeff and I, we like our wine, and we like our red meats. We like everything you think that what you guess you think we are, we're that. But when I'm talking to Jeff about, red meat, well, tell me the story, because I find this almost shocking about beef in France?
Well, I'll just tell you this, that France has many things that are just, they just excel. They're just amazing. Like the bread here, yeah, it's the most incredible bread. I know it sounds weird, but it's the most incredible bread on the planet, and trying to stay away from it is hard. The beef, though, I've yet to find. You know how you like to get a nice marbly
Yes.
ribeye, you know, like
Oh,
with a
yeah.
little bit of fat running through there.
Of course.
Well, their beef here is really lean, so invariably it's quite tough. I mean, it's available. I just haven't found it yet, but I've still got my eyes peeled for it. I don't eat a lot of red meat anymore, but when I do, you know, it's nice to have it. You don't want to sit there chew it all day, which is kind of the case here.
The one thing, because France was always, certainly for me, always a punchline, right? It was always snotty, you know, the pouty lipped, smoking, you know, it was easy to call them arrogant and all these things. And then I went to France and I went, oh, it's way better than what we got.
Well, and you know what, to a certain degree, that might be an imprint of, you know, people from Paris or Marseille or any of the bigger centers. But when you get out into the countryside where we are, it's the complete opposite. The people here, it's the government that we're having a problem with, but the actual people here are so welcoming and friendly. We've now got quite a great collection of friends around here and amazing tradespeople. So we haven't noticed that at all. And, you know, I've been taking French lessons, and when I try to speak, you know, they so appreciate it, because a lot of British people come down here and no regard for trying to speak the language. And when you get to the countryside, you better have a modicum of French, because no one speaks English, not a lick. I mean, you know, you're going to go to Paris and you're going to, oh, well, they speak English in France. Not out here, they don't.
No,
you know,
no.
Yeah,
and that, you know, ouais, la bibliothèque, eh?
yeah, right.
What? No wonder they hate you. You know, and of course, because the thing about speaking French is, you know, you got to make the sounds right, and it's, for English people, it feels silly and uncomfortable to, you know, that kind of stuff. But of course, people understand that not all you married to a saint, but she's bilingual and there's no accent either side. No
Either
accent.
side. Yeah, no, that's helped a lot. Now, she's found that a bit taxing, because she has to deal with all of the government forms and that kind of thing. But you know, it was either that or we moved to Spain, where neither of us speak the language. So, you know, we may as well somebody speak the language, you know.
And you're not that far from Spain. How far would Spain be from where you live?
So if you were to sort of triangulate where we are, Mike, we're sort of right between or among Toulouse, Bordeaux, and Montpellier. If you wanted to do a big triangle, we're kind of in the middle of that. So southwest France, kind of right in the middle of the two oceans, the Mediterranean and the Atlantic. So that's kind of where we are. Yeah,
it's incredible, you know, that you did this, and I tell you this often, because I think it's, of all the people I've known ever, this is one of the coolest things I've ever heard of people doing, because we talk about it all the time. People talk about, and they see shows where they're like, you know, we decided that, you know, we're going to move to whatever. And of course you see these movies or shows or television series. It's like, isn't that funny how but you would never do it. Like, people don't do necessarily. And it wasn't an easy move. It's not like you moved from a condo here in Toronto.
Oh.
You have stuff, my friend. You have living animals and things and tractors, and you had a big move. And you had both those properties at once, which I know was just a huge laughs.
Besides having a lot of personal baggage, yes, I have my share of crap, and yeah, we did bring a couple of tractor and a side by side, and tried to bring a car over here, and it was a bit of a poop show, I got to tell you, all the stuff, and then they end up just leaving it like we're on the top of a hill, but above us is the road. And the driver said, no, I'm not coming down there. And so everything sat on the top of this hill. I've got photos of it. You wouldn't believe it. And it all had to be schlepped on down the hill into the house. And yeah, it was a big deal. It was a big deal. But everything's kind of cool now. Our big problem right now is is getting the government to do something with all the forms that we've filled out. We've been here a year and 3 months, and we don't have our carte de séjour, which is our basically residency card. Now they've sent a notice saying this is the funny thing. They send you a notice right away. It's being processed. So you have that piece of paper. So if you ever get pulled over, you can give them the little piece of paper that says, oh, it's being processed, but we don't have a car. We don't have our health card. We don't have our French driver's licenses. We can drive, but we don't have our French driver's licenses. And we've been here a year and 3 months, and we don't have doctors.
Oh yeah. See, no.
See, so
That's tough.
and it's during this time where Julie and I sat down and we were kind of stressed out about everything. And I said, why don't we do a podcast? Why don't we do a podcast about our adventures?
Oh, it's great.
So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today, buddy.
Well, let's hear. But look, there will be more material, more stuff, and two people that can convey the emotion of the moment as much as anybody I've ever known.
And it has been really cathartic. We just started doing them. It's called Jeff and Julie Moved to France During a Global Pandemic.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's going to be lots of moments. Now, is it just audio only, or is there audio only?
For very good reason.
Yeah,
it's audio only. It is now and by the way, our mutual friends Humble and Fred are hosting it for us.
Oh,
so
excellent. Okay.
So they're hosting it, but it's available wherever you get podcasts. As of right now, we have our episode 1 just dropped yesterday. So episode 1 is available at iTunes, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, whatever aggregator site you use, you can go check it out. And it's basically it's a chronology. So it started off basically almost 3 years ago, Mike. The episode 1 is kind of about why did we choose France? How did we do it? All that kind of thing. So as we get closer and closer to today's date, but there's so much material between then and now, you know?
Yeah, I mean, when we figure what you had to do. And again, I go back to that philosophy. Like people go on holidays, they'll go on holidays and they'll always say, oh, I could live here. No, you couldn't. They'll sit there, they'll go to Mexico and go, oh, I could live here. Yeah? ¿Usted entiende español? I'm sorry? Yeah, exactly. This is what I'm saying. You, and then there's the cultural differences, not just the language. Like you got to think about, and this is what I thought was incredibly entertaining. So when Jeff and Julie, so they're in France, and then there's the work that you do on the property you bought, which is like 1,000 years old or whatever it is, and so you have to have all these carpenters and all these people in that industry. And I'm seeing a guy named Pierre Georges or someone like that, and I think his name is Angus. It was a Scottish guy who was actually doing your stuff.
Well, Ian, and,
yes,
he's a big part of the podcast for sure, because he rescued us from the fire, and it was so interesting because Ian lives literally 5 minutes from here, masterclass tradesman, a great general contractor, and during a time where materials were scarce and tradespeople were not really interested in going to work, Ian was able to cobble together a renovation crew and get the materials here and really got this thing done very close to the projected time. And there was this was a full on reno, buddy, as you know, every wall, every floor, every ceiling, new kitchen, the place looked like Bosnia at some point, and it was So he was able to get us through that.
Now, as I said, Jeff's going to be with us. It's 8:20, by the way, right now on Newstalk Sauga 960 Raw. Mike Richards. Jeff will be with us to 8:55 this morning. And I did send an email, just sort of working on some of the brand new technical aspects of this, which means when the commercials are on during the breaks, we can't even talk.
Right.
Can't talk. It's a little lot of Marcel Marceau stuff. See, there's a French reference that I'm sure the French just love.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the mimes. We see that's the thing. You think there's a lot of mimes over there. There's like we don't really know, because everything in our head is Paris, right? As North Americans, we don't we know there's other places, but if you say France, you're thinking Paris, and yet the people I've met from France always say, don't compare us to people, don't compare us to Parisians or whatever.
I will say that it's quite common to see someone in a beret carrying a baguette. I will say that.
Now that's huge laughs. That's got to be very entertaining.
And that's everywhere. I know. It just drives me crazy how you always see French people with baguettes and they're always skinny as a rail. Come on. How is that possible?
Yeah, because that's not what happens here.
I know.
It's not what happens here. And as I said, I mean, people talk about wines. Well, it's one thing because we go into the LCBO, we have all these varieties and varietals of wines and all different labels and so on. But when you go to a country, for instance, so several years ago, before I really knew much about Spanish wines, I go into a Spanish wine shop and you realize very quickly, unless you've done a lot of that or research or very comfortable with that region, that area, that country, as much as you might know about certain wines, it may not be from there. So now it's a guessing game, and and the only way to figure out if you like it or not is you got to pop one open. And that's, that may, as much as people think it's fun, it takes a while to be acclimatized to maybe the wine of the region or the wines available to you.
And if you're used to, as we were, if you're used to sort of a California-based, say a Merlot or a Cab, or in Julie's case, she likes Chardonnay. If you're used to that sort of oaky, smooth, satiny, vanilla, all those wonderful tastes, you might have a tough time here, because things are very much more tannic, much more acidic, really great with certain foods. But you're right, you gotta try it. You gotta acclimatize your taste buds to it, and then you'll start finding, oh, I like this little mini region here, or I like this vineyard here. But yeah, at first it was, well, we talked. Remember we talked about a year ago, and you asked me how the wines were, and I went, oh, buddy, I'm having a tough time.
Yeah, and that's not, I don't hear that often between us. Oh, what do you mean you don't like that one? And so I tried one of the regions. I said, okay, so to Jordan, I said, so let's get one of the region. It was the one towards the East Coast.
Languedoc or something?
Yeah, it was Languedoc. Yeah. And I opened up, I said, I don't know what he's talking about. He's grumpy, he's older, he doesn't know where he is, he's disoriented. So we tried the wine, and I'm basically like this. It was awful. It was terrible. Like, look, terrible for what expectation? Look, I'm pretty open. It's pretty broad when I start talking about wines. But it also, and God bless my good friend Bruce Dobigan, who always said, well, look, it's made for the food that you drink or that you eat of that region. So if you're not eating a certain kind of food, the wine may not be kind of your go-to immediately, because maybe you don't eat that way. Maybe you don't prepare the food way. For instance, there's a lot of lard, right? So is it goose or is it duck fat? Like, what are you cooking with? Like, all those kinds of things. It all makes a difference, and it's not overnight, I would suggest.
Well, and to that point, now that I've been here a year and 3 months, I bet you I come back and I would drink some of the wines I used to drink from California and find them jammy. I'll bet you that's the case.
I 100%. Yes.
Palate has changed dramatically. Now of course, I love so much of the wine here. But it did take some, it did take some time to not only get used to the different wines here, but just to find the ones that you really liked.
Yeah. Well, apparently you do, because every time I talk to you, you have wine.
No.
Like it really, it's becoming sad now that there he is. There's and of course the time difference. I'm like, are you smoking a cigar? Yeah, it's dummy. It's like 5 hours later. I'm not having my 10 o'clock in the morning cigar or whatever.
Yeah, that's my excuse for drinking wine on every Zoom call. Hey, it's 6 hours later. Come on. Yeah.
We're going to continue on with our good friend Jeff Lumby. I know there's things that people will probably want to hear about our shenanigans at Y95, the weirdness of 92.5, the Kiss FM experience. We were there for about an hour, and there was some weird stuff that happened there that I still can't believe happened. So
we got to talk about that, buddy.
We're not. So we have a short break here. We come on at the bottom of the hour. So I'm basically explaining what's happening because we can't talk during the break. So we have like 3, 4, 5 minutes at the bottom, 6 minutes. Come back, and the 8:40 we're back on again. So we continue with more Tales of Lumby, and of course the podcast. So it's Jeff and Julie
moved to France during a global pandemic.
We'll talk more about that. It is 8:26 on Newstalk Sauga 960.
Hang on.
Sauga.ca to learn how you can enjoy everything local and keep Mississauga strong.
The morning show that doesn't suck.
Well, I have a microphone and you don't.
So you will listen to every damn word I have to say.
You're listening to Rob Mike Richards on Newstalk Sauga 960.
It is 8:29. News Talk Sauga 960. Raw Mike Richards. We're with Jeff Lumby in studio. I see we got a message from Doug Kirkwood. Good to hear you two together. You know what? Beat it. Get your own show. You know what? Actually, he's going to be on tomorrow with Paul Romanek from 7 to 8 tomorrow.
Kirkwood.
It's that'll be very interesting, and talk to our good friend Romy. By the way, in looking at the NFL now, how much of that would you see over there? Like, are there television packages where you actually in NHL? Like, how are you getting North American sports?
Here's the problem. I mean, even if I could, and I haven't really, gone into any kind of search mode for it, because a 7 o'clock game is 1 a.m. Well, I'm not watching that. Now, I was reading some stuff about this last weekend. How you tell me, how bad was the officiating in that Bengals Raiders game? Because every story I read had nothing about the game, and it was like
they did
500 words on the officiating.
Yeah, overall, like, look, I'm not someone who gets all tangled up into it. And as you know, I'm a gambler. So because all the bets were coming in and all the props were hitting, I could care less.
Yeah.
I'm a bastard person. There could have been a fire, there's small children being sacrificed. As long as they covered the number, I'm probably good with it, And so I just recognize that I think this year, and look, as people know, I rarely talk about officiating. Like, it's probably the thing I think about the least. The thing that bothers me about current, and this is a lot of sports, but in football in general, the instant or what was instant replay, there's nothing instant about it. Now you have every super slow-mo angle to see whether the guy's toenail was in. After a while, there was that Rams touchdown, which clearly was a touchdown because, of course, it's in a building with a roof, so there's a camera right over top. It's sort of like when they put in hockey, once the overhead camera was able to see whether the puck crossed, it made things actually pretty easy. You could see over top,
unless the goalie was covering it up, right?
And but it takes sometimes like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes on one individual play, and then of course here comes the challenge flag from the coach on the other side, and then he wins just at some point, at least in the day, you and I would play against each other, and part of the sportsmanship was we realized, good or bad, we're just going to abide by whatever the officials say. So they're going to make some bad calls, going to make some good calls, but basically we're going to play the game the way the game was intended. And now it's a video game. So look, there's some sports that it does make sense. Now, I'm not a big tennis guy, but the electronic ability to see in or out, the accuracy, and it's immediate.
And it's immediate. That's what I'm going to say. It's immediate. The fans kind of get into it, that they have a little bit of fun with it. But you're right. Like first of all, the NFL was slow enough. How much is you're sitting there watching people get off the ground? It's just not fun anymore. And I don't know, 3.5 hours for a football game, and now that's really adding to the time, isn't it?
Well, it's getting to the point where it's just very frustrating, whether it's a catch or not. I mean, it might be a 4-yard catch, like it might be not even for a first down, and these guys are sitting there, and it goes on and on. It just lost the intent and the spirit of the competition itself. And so, as I said, now it's become a video game, and it's taking way too long. Now, speaking of tennis, which I never do, but I did read something that Joker's dad had written, and I think,
this will be good.
And I'm like,
gem.
I said, I just don't recall when Djokovic walked on water. Like, I must have missed the point where
the one day he was Jesus, and then the next day he was Spartacus. And after that, I think I'm not sure if there's any. I mean, does it get? That's it. I think if you're Jesus one day and Spartacus the next day, you should be able to play any tennis tournament you want with any amount of vaccine or not. What a ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, the water into wine and just loaves of bread coming out of his for the whole stadium. It got to the point where, look, I'm been not friends with tennis for quite some time because of certain attitudes by certain people, and I just started to not enjoy it as good as some of those athletes are. And some of their
But
athletes.
then you get Federer and Nadal, which has been the greatest gentleman's rivalry on the planet in any sport.
Yeah.
And these guys have ultimate respect for one another. And I really like what Nadal came out and said. He wasn't trying to carve up Djokovic, but he just said, nobody's bigger than this event. Nobody's bigger than the game.
Yeah.
Here are the rules. This is all brought on by Djokovic. This is all brought on by him. He had the ability to mitigate all of this by just doing what everybody else is doing, trying to get rid of this problem.
And so you see all the other tournaments in turn are now making sure that it is airtight on what the expectations are with vaccinations. Now, I'll still say, and this is just me talking, the vaccine to me, when it came out, the first announcement of it, I just couldn't believe that the scientists and all the smart people in the world who actually got together and figured something out to kind of save the planet. I mean, that was my feeling. Is like, okay, whatever it is, I'll roll up the sleeve and here we go. I never really thought in our lifetime during something like this, there would be those saying that it wasn't a good thing. And sometimes these people, where they're getting their information from, Facebook or Joe Rogan or wherever this scientific information,
Alex Jones. Yeah.
I just never thought it would be a thing. Like where an athlete, whether it be, Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins, who couldn't play. I mean, these are guys who, you're so gifted to make in a sport where you make so much money and have this lifestyle. And then because you believe that you know more than like really smart people, and then you get called on it and then you're embarrassed. Like, cause that's what happens. You get called on it and then it backfires, and cause it always will. And so now you're getting to the point where the other tennis and big tournaments are saying, if you don't have this, you ain't playing, which I'm 100% for.
Yeah, like in the case of Aaron Rodgers, he comes out and says, I thought science was meant to be challenged. Yeah, by other scientists. Not someone who goes hot all day. Okay?
Yeah.
By other scientists.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway.
That's right. Well, look, we got more to talk about. We're going to talk about our days, I'm sure, at 195, the bizarreness of Kiss 92.5. I think that's what they call. I don't remember. We were there so briefly and it was so weird. I don't even know if I got that right. But we got lots more with our good friend Jeff Lumby in just a couple of minutes here. He will stay in studio with us. It is 8:36. Newstalk Sauga 960.
You're listening to Raw Mike Richards on Newstalk Sauga 960. And now from the Bell Lifestyle Studio, here's Mike.
It is coming up on 8:40 Newstalk Sauga 960. Raw Mike Richards, and in studio with us this morning, our very good friend Jeff Lumby from France. Now, if we had gone back in the hot tub time machine and looked at what this conversation that's going on right now, you'd be like, "What? I live in France." Yeah, you live in France. Is it with Julie? Is it with Julie? I don't know. I can't speak to that. But it is remarkable all those years ago going to Y95, in which we produced more stuff on a daily basis than I think entire stations in a whole year. I mean, you just don't hear it. I realize that sometimes styles of humor and entertainment change, but there almost, I have no description. It's hard to describe exactly what we did on a daily basis, but it was very free form. It was very involved from a production standpoint. A lot of it was done live, and the difference in the way in which I would prepare material, which wasn't preparing at all.
I was gonna bring this up too.
Jeff Lumby had a slightly different way of doing things. Didn't
we were the Felix and Oscar of. Okay, so because I would come in with everything, Times New Roman, okay, off the computer. Not and again, it wasn't really scripted, but we had guidelines, and my guidelines would be, off the computer and highlighted. Oh, we have italics for this and an underline here and a bold font for this one. Mike's stuff comes in on a bar napkin, okay, or a coaster. Well, what is this, Mike? What did you use for? What is that? A crayon and a Firkin coaster? I mean,
And then I'd look at it and go, "Oh, that's Chantel's number. Oh, I thought I lost that. That's awesome." Yeah, can you concentrate for 5 seconds? And then these hugely produced and sometimes produced live would just start pouring out of the show on a regular daily basis.
Yeah,
and where Jeff would have things where, and it was the scripts and saying this and you will say this, and then it got to the point where and it's a trust thing. It's like, what are we doing today? Well, we're going to do the Anthony show. We're going to do whatever it was. And you'd have some ideas of what you were going to say. I'd have some ideas what I was going to say.
But we never told each other because we wanted that honest reaction.
Yes. Yeah. That wrecks it. Yeah.
That's why it wasn't scripted for that. But I may need to say, okay, you need to just ask me this. Ask me this.
Yeah.
And then I've got a response.
Yeah.
And
the tie of how, so if you're doing an impression of someone, we kind of gave them their own character, their own personal, maybe a personality that they didn't have, but we made them that way. For instance,
right.
Charlton Heston. See, it sounds insane saying this. Like, it sounds nuts now, but Charlton Heston didn't like you, but he liked Todd.
That's right. I didn't like Charlton.
No.
But Todd, it was like his father was calling.
Yeah. He was.
Charlton, you're so wonderful.
The young James Franciscus, as he used to call him all the time.
Well, and but here's the thing, and I mean, when you're doing that kind of radio, which is character driven, if the people on the show don't buy into those characters 100%, it doesn't come off. Like, if you're going to slough off the character and slough off your relationship to that character, it's never going to happen, because if you don't believe it, then how do you expect the audience to believe it? So that was one of the things that you and I felt, I never had an experience in radio like the one I had with you, because we just bought into what the other guy was doing 150%, and as a result, it was just so much fun. I can't tell you the times where I played the straight guy more than you did, because you're just so amazingly talented. It's ridiculous, and I can't tell you how many times I'm biting because I'm supposed to be the straight guy. And again, you have to honor that if you're going to be the straight guy.
Yes.
But I'm just inside. I'm just like Tim Conway and Harvey Korman, man. I'm just dying.
You know where you could really see where we had a tough time concentrating on each of our parts. There's a couple of them, but the one that stands out always is the Stallone Arnold back and forth, because all they did was act like a couple of teenagers who all they wanted to do was insult each other and then make fun of each other. Now, both of them don't have really a reputation of being, Harvard grads. So the fact that both of them thought they were smarter than the other guy, and the insults were really like low-level insults. I mean, you'll get more base than that. That's where, because we'd have a tough time not laughing. I mean, that was that one was tough. But there was for instance, we bring in our good friend Eric Thomas, who does an amazing Danny Gallivan.
It's just lights out.
Right. It's Danny Gallivan. And so we start going back and forth, and I'm doing Foster. Now, nothing was ever planned, because he was in Font Hill, he was in the St. Catharines area doing his thing. And I hadn't talked to him in years, and I'm doing Foster. Well, all of a sudden, his Danny Gallivan starts ripping into Foster, like just carving him. And then Foster's getting all mad. And so he starts throwing French Canadian insults, which kind of makes no sense, but that's what he would do, these insults. And they would go back and forth, and they never got to whatever they were supposed to talk about, because all they did was beat on each other all the time, right? It
was the best.
That was just entertainment. And I said, that's the shame of the current status of almost all radio, is that in the day we were supposed comedy. We were supposed to be a show. Like, you were supposed to do things that the average person going, how did they do that? Or how do they do those songs? How do they do all these characters? And then with the sound effects and the whole thing, that was the magic of a professional broadcaster, is we would bring these things to the table. And as you went to work, you're like, oh man, I love when they do this, or I love when they do that. And that almost is a lost art, because I don't hear it anywhere.
The theater of the mind. That was my favorite part about the difference between radio and television. I mean, television, there it is. There's nothing left to the imagination. Radio, there's everything left to the imagination.
Yeah, it certainly, and again, certain styles of things fall out of favor. Like you fall. I certainly even the Zoom thing's different, but I mean, I still, with Dave Bastl, if there was a Leaf game, you knew that Mike Babcock was coming on the next day. Dave would, his thing was he was a straight guy, right? So he never said anything adversarial to almost any of them. His relationship with Babcock was he just listened to all the crap that used to and all the great ideas that he had, and of course they were always mean and usually had to do with lists of people and embarrassing them and all kinds of stuff like that. And I loved doing that voice. But the Victor so when Victor would come on this station, Dave was the apple of Victor's eye. Like that was his, and an insinuation, because Victor was always saying stuff about Dave's mom.
Okay.
So the insinuation that was actually his son. That's how, on TSN too, on TSN 1050, that was always the underlying thing about, is Dave Bastl really Victor Newman's son? And those are the kinds of things that I think people, we get it all the time. You see it on Twitter. They want to hear Bob Cole Chicks I Like, and some of this stuff, if I did a segment called Bob Cole Chicks I Like, I think there'd be heat. I think you would, there's a lot of things that I would do now that I think that the people wouldn't be able to stomach.
And don't you find that it's just really unfortunate that this woke movement is happening at a time where people need joy, people need to be taken away in a realm of comedy that makes them forget about all the things that are going on. And what this woke movement is, this cancel culture, it's just anti-life is what it is. It's just anti-life. I mean, I look at somebody like Ricky Gervais, who in this day and age is my absolute hero.
Yeah.
He is my absolute go-to hero in every respect. I mean, Afterlife is just, it's over now. It's just an incredible series. And he is an incredible writer. But what he did at those Golden Globe Awards, I just thought,
priceless.
Now that's what we need.
Yeah.
You
don't need two people on stage doing scripted jokes and then waiting for the like I can't handle that stuff, or the sitcoms with the laugh track. I mean, I and Afterlife, as I said, for people who haven't seen it, because we every Tuesday we talk to our TV guy from TVA, Greg David, and we were talking about some of the what I consider to be the funniest moments of all time, and a couple of them actually, quite frankly, are Ricky Gervais moments in his series called Life's Too Short.
Oh, now, my God. The Liam
Neeson thing is the funniest thing I've ever seen recorded, maybe. Slapstick. I mean, it's when he goes, and he's reading off the list and he goes, crazy characters. Oh my God.
Slapstick. It's just brilliant. And then the other side of Ricky Gervais, and now we're on this weird tangent, but it's worth mentioning because that, and I was talking on Humble and Fred yesterday about this too. The last episode of the series, which just dropped, of Afterlife, that 35-minute episode is the most compelling piece of television I think I've ever seen, and impactful. I mean, Julie and I were just both, we didn't talk for 5 minutes after that ended. It was just that beautiful, like that amazing. So
the weight that he has, for instance, he did that show called Derek, which some people, it's one of those, you got to spend a little more time sort of buying into it. But I will say this, because see, a lot of people thought that he was making fun of a special needs person. So a lot of people were, and then as you realize, because he really is the star of the show, and he only gets stronger as it goes on. And he explains in an interview, when someone asked him, he said, well, it's because one of his closest people in his life was his cousin, who was exactly like that, who was special needs, and they owned a senior's home. Like, it was all based on stuff. It wasn't that he was making fun of it. It's the life that he lived and wanted to show sort of the heart of this Derek character.
Right.
But at the end of the show, there's one of the characters who shows up in that show gives a speech at this wedding. It is the funniest speech I have ever heard recorded. It is insane what this person says. And my stomach, it's one of those things. It's like watching the Liam Neeson thing. It only happens when truly funny people who know what funny is come up with, like, and when I mean a home run. This speech in Derek, that's a wedding speech on the last episode, even if that's the only thing you ever watched. But yeah, it kind of misses because you're not getting all the, but it almost stands alone as really the most horrific and awful speech.
Is it as bad as Buscemi's in Wedding Singer?
Oh, a billion times worse.
Okay.
A billion times worse. I can't give it away because it would wreck it. It is the funniest thing. And look, I know we're going to run out of time, but hopefully we can do this more often. I said, this catch up has been great. Whenever you want to come on and talk
I
about
can't
stuff.
believe we're already, an
well,
hour
it
here
just
almost.
whips
Yeah.
by, and we didn't cover half our stuff. But the one thing that was so funny when Jeff and I go to Kiss FM, so that was Kiss with a C, so it was the country station, and there's a lot of stuff that I sort of knew about country and liked it, right? I mean, there was a lot of the stuff that I really liked. So Jeff and I go and do this thing, and we start off calling it Jefferson and Richards. I mean, does that sound that sounds country and really had such potential, actually pretty good numbers when I look back on it. Actually had some very good ratings, but we only did it for 5 months or whatever,
6 or 7 months, I think. Yeah, something like that.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I'd never done a real countdown. Like, we did a Casey Kasem bit every once in a while that was always very funny, but we actually have to do a real countdown. So we do this for a couple of weeks, and I notice these songs that weren't necessarily the best songs nor the strongest artist, and here we go. This week at number 1 is Steve Fartson and Mama. Well, I didn't see that one coming as number 1. And so finally I go to the music director and I said, did I see that Steve Fartson and Mama went from like number 39? It's number 1. She goes, oh, that's right. Really? Oh, how does that work? Like, how do they? Oh, no, everyone gets to be number 1. Oh. What kind of crazy talk is that? Oh no, they all get to be number 1. That's not how the world is. Everyone doesn't get a trophy. Steve Fartson beat Garth Brooks? In what universe? How is this even possible?
He's from Aurelia. It was strange. You know what though? Here's what I would say though. I wouldn't give that back, because I got to meet Vince Gill.
Oh yeah.
We got to hang out with Trisha Yearwood, and Trisha Yearwood is one of the funniest, most fun people you could possibly spend like Julie came on, everybody, it was like dinner. We had just an amazing time.
That was a great night. We went out to had an Italian dinner after that. And the funny thing about Trisha Yearwood, she's one of these people that after you talk to them for a while, and then we did the Victor Newman thing and had all kinds of fun and went all nuts, you feel like you went to high school with her. Like somehow I had this feeling like I really knew her. So she had her people there. So she had flown in from Montreal, I believe, that night. And as we're standing there, she said, well, hey, y'all, when you come down to Nashville, I'll put on a pot of coffee for you. I went, oh, yeah, real enticing. And her people just go, what? She goes, what? I'm going to go 3,000 miles and you're going to, put on a pot of coffee for me. See ya. She just starts laughing. I said, you better get out the Jack Daniels. You better get out some nice bourbon. and don't bring out the crap plates either, like for the other country people. That's trying to step it up a little bit. Let's go full China. So I'm just going back and forth. She's slapping, my shoulders, and we're all sitting there. We got a great picture of it. But country was like that. The shame of it was that, and look, some places do it well. The country station out here in Oshawa, which has been around forever. I know everyone doesn't make it to number 1. I know that because the world is that way. But country is a very cool format, and I wish we had a little bit of a longer run with a slightly different focus, because it's a shame that it was so brief, because we did have fun. That was
we did have fun, and I'll never forget Vince Gill, who's pound for pound one of the best songwriter, vocalist, guitar players in the world. There he is in the little booth. He's very shy. And his album, The Key, had just come out. He's singing this song about his dad who just passed, The Key to Life. And he's losing it because he said, I've never just played this on the guitar by myself. And he's crying. And it was just like, holy cow, this is amazing.
Like what a freak talent he was. Like he was so talented. And then he did If You Ever Have Forever in Mind, but a lot of piano in it. But he started doing the guitar. But he's just one of these guys, because he's big, right? He's tall. People don't realize how tall he is.
Yeah,
he's
a big guy.
But with that voice, I said, so are you going to play, because I love that song. Well, I guess I could try it. I really don't, next thing you know, he's flying away, and we're looking at each other going, oh, this is unbelievable. There was some real moments, including see, now we're going to run out of time. Now we're running late.
You got to go. All right. We'll do this again. You know
Yeah.
what? I'm as you can appreciate, I'm pretty wide open here, buddy. So let's do this again. I would love it. It's been really fun.
Well, we can do this on a regular basis, as far as I'm concerned, because I know there's so much we can touch upon, and it's just too much fun. And it's, as you know, I miss you a ton. This
Yeah.
makes it less. This makes it feel like there's still, we're doing what we do. And so I thank you so much for this morning.
Well, we'll
we'll-
email and we'll try and
yes.
do it again. Say hi to Romy and Kirkwood.
Yeah, I will
For
definitely do that.
tomorrow.
Thanks a lot, pal. Appreciate it.
Take care, buddy.
That is the one and only Jeff Lumby. That hour went by like way too fast, which